YouTube friends. I am so excited to be filming this video, and this video is first going to go up on Patreon. So if you're watching this as a Patreon, hello, I love you, thank you. And I am so excited to share my birth story because it was nothing that I expected and everything that I needed. It was the most beautiful and most spiritual experience of my life. Like, don't get me wrong, the hardest thing that I have ever done. But I was watching my birth video, my labor and delivery vlog back. I was editing it and kicking myself for maybe not explaining more what was going on in the moment. But I am just so excited to jump right in. So I just want to say thank you, of course, for all of the love and the support. It has been 1 week now since I gave birth to Laila, and I am just so in love with her, and I'm so much more in love with my partner. He was so amazing throughout the whole thing, and we'll talk about that also, because I think that there is this expectation of men to kind of know how to nurture us, know how to be in the masculine for us, and know how to show up for us. And so just really jumping right into it, I was watching my labor vlog back and I had shared certain things, and if I'm looking down, I have my baby monitor, but I had shared certain things and certain preferences that I was leaning towards, and in the video you see that I'm using the gas. And so one of the biggest questions that I got asked was, how is the gas? How is it going? How are contractions? How are the pain? And I want to start off by saying that I had never heard of back labor until the day that I went into labor. Like that day that I went into my appointment, which I don't say this in the video. So I went into labor technically, like, started pre-labor early morning on the 21st, which was my due date. And so I'd pretty much been saying the whole time in my pregnancy that I saw and felt baby Lace coming the 21st through the 23rd. I knew that there was a full moon on the 20th. It kind of lingers into the 21st, and really knowing that that energy supports mothers who are full term. And so I had this feeling on the 20th, and we did a couple things. I tried spicy food. I have vlog clips still, and this was something that I've talked about where I was like, I don't want to have all these videos prepared and then I go into labor and it's like, well, nobody cares about these videos anymore. So let me know what you guys think. Should I still post those videos? What should we do about that? But I just think to all this footage I have, and now at this point, doesn't even matter. I have no idea. So the 21st, I had a doctor's appointment, and I woke up that morning, and around 3 in the morning, I decided to get out of bed, and I was having a lot of back pain, and I had not had any pain throughout pretty much my whole pregnancy. I would have a couple Braxton Hicks every now and then. I would maybe feel a little bit of back pain when I had been at the hospital. They showed me a couple spinning babies positions to prepare for labor. And so one of those just always kind of put a lot of pressure on my back. So that day, feeling a lot of back pain, feeling contractions, and a lot of people asked me about what were my pre-labor, early labor signs, and I want to say that I have never been more grateful for my connection to myself and my devotion to myself and my love for my body. And what I mean by that is feeling so connected to my body that one of my pre-labor signs was simply me in my head of bitch, you're going into labor, it's going to happen, this is happening. I was having a lot. So on the 20th, I had just discharge running down my leg, but it was milky but watery, and so I knew it wasn't fluid. I knew that my water had not broken. But I was just texting my friends, like, my body's doing its thing. It's preparing to literally go into labor. And I was telling all my friends this, I was telling James this. And then on the 21st, when I woke up very early in the morning, like something around like 1, just having that pain. And then slowly throughout the morning, I started getting a lot of just like mucus. And just think about like, I don't know if you blow your, it's just very, like egg whitey, you know, like when you're ovulating. But it was like a little pink, and I was having some contractions in the front, very light, but still feeling them. And I think I shared this in my labor and delivery vlog, that I had felt that feeling of like starting my period for a couple of days. And so knowing that that feeling was lingering, knowing that certain things were changing in my body, and then, you know, in the birth vlog, you see me in my office, and I had prepared my office. I had flowers everywhere. I had cleansed the space. I had just really set the intention of this was the space that I was going to prepare myself, mind, body, soul, to become a mother and really go into labor. And, you know, I shared that one of my preferences, and even in the birth vlog, continuously saying that I wanted to labor at home as long as possible. So even though we did go to the hospital, because I had called my doctor, told her about my contractions, and she wanted me to come in because I did test positive for the strep B test, meaning that you have to have at least 2 rounds of penicillin, which they take about an hour each, and then I think they wait a couple hours in between. They ended up giving me penicillin every 2 hours when I was there. And by the way, let's talk about this. A lot of people say how it like really hurts your hand, it burns, all these things. The best, it just like, it like stingles. Like it's like a tinge feeling, which we'll get to the epidural. So the tinge feeling, I was very worried about the hand epidural. Some people do hand, some people do wrist, and honestly, it was not that bad. It was a very big needle, and someone who hates needles, hates the whole rodeo, it's not that bad at all. So I want to clear everyone's fears, that I also tell the nurses, I don't know if other people do this, I tell people that like I am not excited, this is what I'm most nervous for, and like kind of speaking the fear out, like releases it in a way, but also they're more gentle and they're more aware, and it just like got to be a funny thing. And I think that, you know, that's kind of a way that I was dealing with my labor experience. Like I was making jokes, but I also was very open and honest in the moments that I was like feeling overwhelmed, the moments I was feeling scared, the moments I was feeling out of control. And so I just want to remind people, like I was almost scared to share that video of my birth vlog, like those moments where I'm just like very much crying, and I don't think I caught it on camera at all, but I was pulling on James, and I was like, I need you to help me. Like, I don't think I can do this. And with my nurses and the doctors, of just like, I was so badly just like feeling out of control. And so backing up, that when when I went to my doctor's appointment, I had been basically in pre-labor all day at home, and my doctor, you know, did my cervix check, all these things. I think she said I was like a 2 or something, but I was like 80% effaced, and my cervix was like very soft or something. She was like, I think I'll see you tonight, if not tomorrow, meaning that I'll go into labor tonight or tomorrow. And I was very excited because that night was one of the doctors that I really loved, as well as that doctor who my appointment with would be there tomorrow. So I knew, and I felt safe that, okay, this is something else that I had been manifesting and really not even worried about, but like I felt safe and secure that like who was meant to be there was going to be there. And I also want to say that like the nurses, the doctors, the whole team of that whole like 4 days that I was at the hospital, that we were at the hospital, were amazing and phenomenal. So I go home, and after my cervix check, which is very normal to get cramping and bleeding like I was sharing in the video, but it was just like next level. It was next level, and the contractions were very close together. They weren't as painful as obviously as I got further along into labor, but they never broke up. They never were taking breaks, which is something that I wasn't like verbalizing and sharing in my birth vlog. Of not only had I not heard of back labor, but in all of my classes, in all of the books I was reading and things like that, people talked about these, even if it's just for a minute or two, having this moment of somewhat relief of your body kind of taking a breath and taking a break. I wasn't getting that. I was not getting the breaks at all. And so that's when you see me kind of like really crying and breaking down of like, I don't know how to do this. And people were, telling me about the epidural from the time that I came in. And I had shared in my videos and my TikToks and my vlogs that I wasn't really wanting one. And I don't think I communicated enough that I wasn't against an epidural. It was simply like my mom and my grandma both had them, and they had very bad reactions to them. It was also the fact of like, the epidural can slow down labor, and I was already like having a hard time dilating, but my body was not progressing as fast as I thought it should be, right? So in my own head, in my ego of like, I didn't want to then add to the delay of meeting my baby. And I shared so often in my videos and my vlogs, whether it be, my pregnancy videos or just TikToks of my biggest intention with my labor and my delivery was to be present, to not only be present with myself, but also my partner. And, I saw people commenting about how they really appreciate that I was paying attention to James and how he felt. And, touching on that really quick of when we first came back from the hospital, when they cleared me to go home because my water hadn't broken and I was under a 5. So my doctor cleared me. She knew how important it was to me that I wanted to labor at home for as long as I could. And when I say long as I could, I mean like even mentally. The pain is a lot. Like the pain is a lot. And I will say that I had back labor. So that's something else that's different. From what I understand, back labor is like more intense, more painful. And like that's kind of part of it with the rolling contractions of like you don't get a break as much. So when we came home, James was having a hard time like supporting me, but not in a way of like being a bad person or being a bad partner, but think about it in the way of seeing someone that you love so deeply being in pain and you truly can't do a lot for it. And also, I think that there's, as much as men have a lot of work to do in a lot of areas, I do think that men need some sort of grace period in the sense of like they are not taught how to support us, especially when like every single person is supported in such different ways. The same way of like in your first trimester, you don't look pregnant. In their eyes, you literally woke up one day and you just have symptoms and they're like, what's going on? Like things can't change that fast. Things can't happen that fast. And a beautiful thing about our partnership and our relationship is that we are very honest with each other. And he, was having a hard time supporting me and just being like, you're not breathing. And I'm like, bitch, if I could breathe, I would, and even now we laugh and joke about it because he told me that when he was doing his hand things and like supporting my back and my hips and squeezing the counter pressure, that his wrists were hurting. And I was like, oh, your wrists? Oh, your wrists hurt? Oh, I'm so sorry. But it's just taking a breath and like looking at the moment and reminding yourself that there's fully no guide for how a partner can support you. And so really having an open heart moment of like, I love you enough to communicate with you of what I'm needing, but also, on the other spectrum of the moment we were out of it and, getting further along, he did apologize. And he's like, in my head, I was like, why is she not managing the pain better? And he's like, that's awful. And I think it's just okay to admit when we're wrong and admit when we are not judging someone else's experience, but kind of just like, maybe judging someone else's experience is the best way to put that. But he was amazing throughout the whole thing. I love him so deeply, and I could not ask for a better partner during labor and delivery, and I want to clear that very quickly, because I could not have done that without him. And there were so many moments that I looked at him and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, because when the anesthesiologist came in that clip where, you know, we're in the room and my hair's in a ponytail and the nurse is saying, you know, I'm doing exactly what I need to. She's saying, we're a great team, listening to my mantras. Her and I had just had a conversation that the pain, in our world, we are kind of taught to like avoid pain, right? When we feel pain, when we feel discomfort, we think something is wrong. And her and I had had a really beautiful conversation that this pain is like one of the few experiences where like things are going right. And so really trying to honor that process. And I was getting to a point, though, circling back to why I brought all this up, of my biggest intention with my labor and delivery was to be present. I wanted to let myself be excited, let myself feel into all these things. And when I say feel into all these things, I mean that the pain was so intense and I was so exhausted from like the day that we were in the day before, like waking up at 3 a.m. and not sleeping. So I was feeling so physically exhausted, right? Because that whole vlog, when we were there, we were not sitting down. I could not sit, I could not lay, I could not sit, I could not lay, I could not get in the tub. I had to go to the bathroom. Nobody tells you this, that like when you are having such intense contractions and just in that much pain, going to the bathroom is so difficult, meaning that like your body just can't even like release and let go. And having to, okay, we're good. Having just to like sit down, I couldn't do any of it. So physically I was feeling so exhausted and just like at this whole new level of pain that I had not felt. But I want to remind people too that when I talk about the pain, don't let the pain scare you, because there's so many options for that. And again, we will get to my choice in the epidural. I had tried the laughing gas, I tried the IV. The IV is nothing, I would skip it, to be honest. I did end up getting, you can get like 3 rounds of the IV, I think. I ended up getting, I think, 3 or 4 rounds of the IV, if I remember correctly. But the reason that I mentioned that about the pain is because the pain can be supported. Just like remembering that being in the hospital, you are probably the most supported that you will be. And what I mean by that is there was never a time in my experience where I felt scared, where I felt like I didn't have options. It was almost like I had too many options and I didn't want to make the wrong one. There was never a moment of feeling like if I did get the epidural that I was a failure. And again, it was not being against the epidural. It was more like wanting to feel really connected to my body and wanting to feel present and wanting to trust my body and what was happening, what was being created. So we were there for such a long time, and I wish I would have paid attention to the time more or talked about it in the vlog. But so we first got there at like 9 p.m. On the 21st. We ended up going home. They said they thought they would see me in like an hour or two to just try and be at home as long as possible, but if it gets bad, come back, and like we're here. We can't wait to like have this baby. So that was 9 p.m. They thought I would come back around 10 or 11. I came back around 3:30. So then I come in, we do the IV, we do the COVID test, we do a blood draw, and you know, we're monitoring the baby. So that is around 3:30. By the time that it is, again, the clips of me talking with the nurse and, you know, James supporting me and me crying very much in pain, I want to say that that was around, it was somewhere in the afternoon. It was very much later in the day than when we had gotten there. And when they checked me again, I was only, I think, a 3 or a 4. And when I say only, I do not mean that that is not like positive and great, because I was the only one in the room, including out of the nurses, the doctors, James, who would feel defeated by that. I was the only one who was getting upset. And they're like, your body is doing exactly what it needs to, but to feel all of that pain, to have all of those contractions back to back to back, literally in my back, it was feeling so defeating. If I was feeling all of that and like progressing in my eyes, that would have been different to me. And so when I say that I was feeling this feeling of just like not knowing what to do, I was talking to the nurse, and at this point I was begging people to help me. I said, I don't know what to do. I'm in so much pain. I don't know if I can do this. Like, I was fully like, somebody knock me out and give me a C-section. Like, literally, if it were up to me, I would just like, I was feeling like I didn't want to be in the experience anymore. And knowing that my biggest goal with labor and delivery was to be present, was to let myself not enjoy the moment, but be in the moment, not trying to escape it. And so the anesthesiologist had come in when I had been there for a very long time, and he just wanted me to know that, you know, you can get the paperwork done now, and that way it's easier if you do come to the decision. And one of my biggest fears in life is 1,000%. I mean, an epidural is literally a needle in your back. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to admit that, like, even the anesthesiologist was like, I come up here, I'm trying to explain to people because, you know, it's a scary concept. And so by the time that I finally did agree to get the epidural, I was, I think, about a 7.5 or an 8. And so these rolling contractions, this back labor, was something that I cannot put into words. But what I can put into words is the support that I needed to do it. And it became this moment of surrendering. And when I say that labor was the most beautiful and like spiritual experience, I mean that it required me to surrender to this thing that felt really scary. And when I say that, like, birth kind of gives you exactly what you're needing, not what you're wanting, it's kind of the same reason that I didn't make a birth plan. I didn't want to make a plan to create this ideal scenario of something that I'd never experienced before. And, you know, just really feeling that this pressure of, okay, well, do I trust my body and do I do this? Or do I know that I need to do this thing because I'm actually not doing what I want? When I say that, I mean that my biggest intention and focus with labor and delivery was to be present and to let myself feel excited that I was going to meet my daughter. I was going to like give birth and finally have our baby. And that was fully out of my mind. And that was something that I was no longer focused on or caring about, because all I could think about was like what was going on in my body. And again, without progressing, feeling like there was no end to it. So having the nurses come in and talk to me, and not in a pressury way. I want to really like clarify that also, that people were so on board with what I wanted and supporting me in whatever that looked like. And this is like the part of my labor and delivery that really I do like kind of forget. But basically my contractions were so bad. They were back to back to back to back to back. And I was pretty far dilated, so they were even more intense. But I like could not even stand anymore. Like, I was like, the point of, you know, the intention of my labor was obviously not in sight anymore. And then to know that I would also have pushing at the end, right? And so I wanted to be present. I wanted to be excited. And I also had to look one of my biggest fears in the face and just like do it. And when I say that I had to surrender, I mean that I had to not only be in the worst pain in my life, but I had to then like sit with it And, you know, the thing too is that we all watch birth vlogs. We all love them. I love them personally. And you see them where the epidurals don't work. You see them where the epidurals have to be done a couple times. You see them where if they're working, then maybe it's only on, you know, one side. And so, you know, then they slow down labor. And I felt like my labor, I had already been there for a very long time. And so I had all these fears. I had all these fears that I was going to do something that I wasn't even really that attached to. But I knew that that was like the gateway almost to get back to the presence in my experience. And it was the scariest thing that I ever did, truly. Like, that might sound stupid to some people, but it was so hard to sit there. I had so many people in the room supporting me, and the anesthesiologist was so kind. I was just like apologizing to him because every time I would try and sit down, I literally would like fall, and it was so painful. And James was sitting next to me or standing next to me, and it was also this moment of like surrendering to letting my partner see me so vulnerable in the state of like, you guys, I was sobbing, I was howling, like this pain was something else. And I, again, back labor, I had no fucking idea. I had no clue about it. So what ended up happening was I agreed to it. I don't really recall a whole lot of the agreeing to it in the sense of like the conversation that was had. I think I was just like, okay, let's do it. Like, I need to do it. And surrendering to this experience and making myself sit there, and Kareen, who I mentioned in the vlog, my angel Kareen, she had been with me throughout my whole pregnancy. She had been there in labor and delivery in the first trimester when we were worried something was wrong, and then recently when I was having contractions too early and we needed to check them out. Kareen had always been my nurse. And so when Kareen came into my room, I literally was just sobbing, and I was like, I'm so happy you're here. And she literally held me as if I was her child, Literally, Karina's standing in front of me. My arms are over her, my legs are wrapped around her, I think, and I'm just like holding her by her neck, and I'm holding her hair, and she's like, just hold on to me, just squeeze me, because we could see on the monitor that like literally I was having these contractions. It's not like I was just like, oh, in pain. These waves that kind of overtake your body, and having to stay still while they're doing this procedure in your back is one of the hardest things I had to do. And then overcoming the fear of it also was like me surrendering to this experience, and me just talking to Kareen the whole time. And people are talking in the room, and you know, it wasn't as like maybe scary as I think a lot of us make it out to be. And I just kept telling her like, it's for the baby, it's for the baby, it's for the baby. So we get the epidural done, which, by the way, in comparison to my contractions, really not that big of a deal. The first needle going in, it was uncomfortable. It did just feel like a little zing. Like, imagine if you have a filling and you bite into like aluminum foil or something. It's like that in your back. But to be having back labor, it kind of felt like just a cold shot of something. And then you feel, you know, the little catheter going in, and this is where I'm talking about the surrendering part and the spiritual part of everything that I feared in the epidural happened. And so when I say that, I mean that through the epidural, I felt this weird zing down my leg. And I was like, ooh, that hurts, that hurts, that hurts. And so, you know, they have to move it around a little bit. They had to do it a couple times again, like that zing feeling, and me just holding on to Kareen. These contractions are happening, and trying not to move. So, you know, we get the epidural. And then they realize that the epidural is not working. The epidural is faulty, that somehow, if I remember correctly, the medication is like coming up, which it should not. I don't know. Something about it was not going in. And so he had to go get a different type of kit to do it. So I was like, excuse me? I was like, what? You're telling, and like, this wasn't like, oh, the same spot, we're just going to like redo this where we've already numbed you. It was this, okay. It was, we need to do it higher in your back. So I had to go through the full process again. And I should say too, that before the epidural came, I begged them to sedate me. Like, I don't know what that would have meant or what that looked like, but I was just out of my mind in just, I mean, you guys saw I was crying, and what you didn't see is that like all those noises that I was making, they just amplified. They amplified. And so I was begging, and they're like, well, you've been on the gas, so we can't give you another round of fentanyl. Or it was that if I have the fentanyl, I can't be on the gas. Because at first I was like, oh, I can just be on the gas while they're doing the epidural and that'll help. I'm gonna go check on the baby 1 minute. Okay, baby is fine and well. 1 week of having this human. So we had to redo the epidural, and I will say, once I got the epidural, felt like $1,000,000. So I think I was just saying how I wanted to use the gas while getting the epidural, as if like that would have been really helpful. Truly, the most helpful thing was having this beautiful, amazing nurse to hang on in front of me, who had such beautiful motherly energy, who was the most supportive, the most kind, and I didn't feel judged once. And so if you're watching this and like, oh, that's so dramatic, or oh, like, how could you do that? Like, make a scene. There was not one emotion, there was not one sound, there was not one feeling, there was not one movement that I was not going to honor in my body. And trying to really be in this people pleaser state, especially during labor, was something that I just could not do. I was doing my damnedest to really take a deep breath and let myself be present. And so, you know, we had to redo the epidural. And when I mention this about surrendering, I want to again reiterate, which I know it's probably annoying at this point, we're like, Marissa, we get it, surrender, like blah, blah, blah. But I want to reiterate that when I say it was a spiritual experience, I mean that looking at this magical moment of looking my fear in the face for my daughter, being in the worst pain of my life, and letting my body get where it did, and then supporting my body after that, was giving it a break and giving it rest. And, you know, I shared on Instagram that I was getting asked a lot about like natural labor and did I have a natural birth and all these things. And I want to remind us, and I've said this time and time again, but I want to remind us that all birth is natural. Whether you literally go through it without even a sniff of the laughing gas, or you have a home birth, or you have a cesarean you have a C-section, the most natural thing is wanting to do what is best for you and your baby. What is a natural birth is doing whatever you need to do to get your baby and have a healthy, happy baby. So really remembering that too, and looking my fear in the face of just being like, all of these things that I feared, they happened and I survived. And I had a beautiful experience even after that, knowing that these things that we fear, these moments that we're trying to avoid or that we dread, that they can happen and you can still be okay. Not only can you be okay, but you might thrive even more than you thought. She's a little wiggle worm. Okay, I'm just gonna go get her 1 minute. Well, this is filming now, but you know, really realizing that these things in life that we fear or want to avoid, that they can happen and we can be okay. And not only can we be okay, but we can be so great that these things in life that we avoid or we fear, that they might just be what you need to get through to have the most beautiful life or the most beautiful experience. And hormones. But really, like, loving that moment and loving that experience. And, you know, it might surprise people that I still call my birth a positive experience, because it was so beautiful to do, you know, all of this for her, and to remember that it, at the end of the day, was for her. And I take nothing back. I would do it all over again. Okay, I'm getting really emotional, but so I got the epidural and it gave me what I needed. It was the breakthrough that I needed. It was the break in my body that I needed. And I want to point out too that, you know, people say like, oh, after they got the epidural, oh, I slept, I rested. I was so excited. I was so excited because I could like feel excited. James and I were in the room and they turned the lights down and they wanted me to sleep, but I was just like talking to him and I was like, we're gonna meet our baby and our baby's coming. And my body then very quickly, after having the epidural, dilated again very quickly, for lack of a better term. And I was just so excited, and James was so loving and communicated to me how in awe of me he was and how proud he was, and just feeling so excited. So it then cuts to us doing some practice pushes, and pushing was my favorite part. Pushing was my favorite part. And you know, you hear my doctor and I talking about how my heart rate was kind of high, and I genuinely think I was just so excited. I was so ready. I was so excited. And I mentioned this on Instagram that I was so focused on like pushing correctly. And so I want to cover that really quick because, you know, of course, like with an epidural, they say that you like don't feel everything, or some people feel too much, you know? So when I was pushing, I had seen this one thing where it was like, you need to not push your baby out. You need to push, like visualize a J, right? So if you have a J, our babies need to get under, get through, however we want to put it, our pelvic bone. And so when you are pushing and you have your baby like going in and then coming back out, going out, coming back in, going out, coming back in, they're trying to get like under, get through, whatever, our pelvic bone. So my biggest thing was remembering that when I was pushing. And so I know a lot of people say when they have the epidural that they kind of can't feel the pushing, things like that. I am so grateful in a weird way that I waited so long to get the epidural, because I felt still so connected to my body and connected to her. There was not, like, I maybe didn't feel my downstairs, but like I could feel her moving in my body. I could feel her working her way down and things happening, which was almost more special and exciting to me. So I was very excited. I was very much looking forward to pushing. So we had a nurse come in and we were doing some practice pushes, and very, you know, quickly she was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have the doctor come in, like, you're doing really well. And it did not take long. The pushing part did not hurt. Again, the J, I was focused on the J, of not focused on just pushing Laila out, but helping her like go under. And very quickly from the pushing, we got there. We got that to happen. People comment on the shape of her head. I would like to thank visualizing a J when I was pushing, because she didn't have a little baby cone head at all, and she came out so beautiful, no bruises. She came out perfect, and I love her so deeply. It hurts. And yeah, it was wild. James was right there. James was holding my leg up. James, I don't know. Honestly, I think people were talking during the pushing, and I was so focused. I was just like so deep in the moment and in love with the moment, and knowing that I faced one of my biggest fears of getting the epidural to, you know, feel these things and feel good and be present. I was soaking it all in. And you know, they were telling me I was doing really well. They would ask me like, oh, can you do another one? If I could, I would. Sometimes I would just push again. And there was a moment where in labor, it's normal where your contractions kind of slow down. Your body's giving you a break. And she asked me if I wanted a small amount of Pitocin just to get the contractions going again, to not hurry it up, but to get the contractions going again, to get them kind of closer together, because I was pushing for 2 hours, right under 2 hours, I think like an hour and a half maybe, but it was taking so long because my contractions were further apart now. And so I was like, no, I trust my body. And that's what I said, I trust my body. And the moment that she said that, I was like, okay, they're not trying to hurry me up, but I want to hurry me up. I can feel this baby right there. I can do it. And they're like, you're going to feel a lot of pressure. Maybe it was the pregnancy constipation that really like prepared me for what was going to come. I think he's home. Hello. Honey. You up there? Yeah, I'm filming. Oh. Come here. You can say a word or two about birth.
Where's baby?
Baby's here.
Baby got pizza.
Baby got pizza.
We got produce.
How was seeing me push? I'm talking about pushing.
Second happiest day of my life. First happiest day.
Happiest?
When we found out we were having a girl.
Oh.
That was when I got to meet her.
Yeah, it was very exciting. Yeah. But I was saying how I was very focused during my pushing, and that I was just, the moment she asked if I wanted the Pitocin, I said no, I trust my body. And then I feel like something just came over me where I was like, I can get this baby out. I feel this baby right here. They were telling me about the pressure, and then I no longer was waiting for my contractions. I simply just kept going, and I kept pushing and focusing on the J shape, and I feel like she came pretty quickly after that, right?
Oh yeah.
So then we had Miss Laila come, and yeah, the pushing part was easy and just magical, and honestly one of my favorite parts. One of my definitely I think my favorite part. And yeah, I loved it. Surrendering to the epidural, having to get the epidural twice. What was it like watching me get the epidural? Cause you were not like turning away from things, like even the pushing, like we had talked about it where I was like, I don't know if I really want you to like be looking, but like there was not a moment that you like turned away.
No, want to make sure they're doing it right, you know.
Yeah. For all that time you spent in medical school. Yeah, that's kind of you.
So.
Or what about the epidural? What was that like watching that?
You ever been to
Were you talking to me during the epidural? No, I feel like you were quiet.
You ever been to wood shop?
No. How? Ew.
Like hitting nails in your back.
How about during pushing? Were you talking to me during pushing?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I was just saying how I know for sure the doctor was like obviously talking to me during pushing, but I pretty much like, I feel like not shut everything out, but I was so focused on just getting the baby out. I felt her right there, and that is such a gift also, to feel like no pain, and even the pressure was not a lot or unbearable. Are those organic?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Organic Honeycrisp apples.
Ooh, hi Rue. This is your baby sis. And yeah, honestly, even going through all of that, I still consider it a positive experience. I still loved it and worth it. Great juggling. And yeah, then we had her, and my placenta came out with ease. I was very excited about that. Thank you. My placenta came out very easily. She came out very easily. I had one small tear, first degree tear, less than an inch, the doctor said, and she was not worried about it at all. And I think there's one stitch, and I honestly don't really feel it, even postpartum now, a week later. And even, how long after that was I walked to the next room. So wasn't that bad at all. And yeah, I just feel like I had a dream experience, and I'm so grateful. Even all of the rough moments and overwhelming moments, all worth it. All worth it. Laila said, well, you don't know what I went through to get here. This is about me now. So we have a little Libra with an Aries moon, graced us with her presence, 9/22, coming out 7 pounds, 7 ounces, which I get a lot of questions about how she is a Libra when she was born on the 22nd. And that is because each new season starts not directly at midnight. So just looking up, in each year it's different of when the seasons are changing. Seasons of astrology are changing. And so yeah, it's literally like 0.25 degree Libra. So she's the definition of a cusp baby. The definition of a cusp.
Perfect baby.
Of a perfect baby Goyle. You know who else is a perfect baby Goyle? Molly Goyle. And Miss Rue. The perfect babies. Yes. Well, that is the tea. So, so grateful, so happy, love you deeply.
You so much. Oh my God.
What was your favorite part of labor, besides like obviously having Laila, holding her?
Favorite part of labor.
Or like maybe like the part that you're like, holy cow.
Being able to be supportive,
Yeah.
because I felt like I didn't really have a place for her at the start. I'm like, don't guys usually like, go hang out and smoke cigars and get drunk, and it's like, I don't belong here. We need a bunch of women in here. And then I was like, no, actually I have a place in this. So
yeah, that
was my personal favorite part, but just being there to support you.
I talked about that too, though, how like there's no like, first of all, there's no manual of how to support someone, but then also like that looks good. Like men are not really taught how to support women during labor. It's not really talked about, So that's okay. Dad's paving the way. Okay. Well, that's our birth story. Leave questions below, and I'm going to do a Q&A soon. Yeah. I'm so obsessed with you. Still sleeping, huh? Must be nice. What?
Forgot the potatoes. I can go back.
You forgot oh, it's okay. Did they have them?
Probably. I walked through the produce and I did not remember. My bad.
It's okay. Okay, well, I'm gonna go eat. Laila, you're also gonna go eat. And we will talk postpartum very soon.